Dr. Velthar watched the emergency console with growing horror. Red warning lights blinked across the massive display screen in the Galactic Medical Center. Each light represented thousands of dying people on 3 distant worlds. Another urgent message crackled through the subspace communication system. This time it was from New Verdant, the agricultural colony that fed half the sector. The voice belonged to Chief Medical Officer Zinthera, and she sounded exhausted beyond measure. "The hospitals are overflowing," she reported, her words barely audible through static. "We're storing bodies in the food storage units because the morgues are full. This disease, it's like nothing we've ever seen before." Dr. Velthar's sport tentacles moved quickly across the control panels, pulling up medical data from all 3 plague worlds. The numbers made his stomach turn. Harmony Station had started with 2 million residents. Now less than half remained alive. Peaceful Haven, once home to families and children, reported that entire neighborhoods had gone silent. The worst part was how fast this unknown sickness spread. Most galactic diseases took weeks or months to kill their victims. This one needed only 3 days. People would feel fine in the morning, develop a slight fever by lunch, and be dead before the next sunrise. What scared the medical teams most was that the disease seemed to target doctors and nurses first. Anyone who tried to help the sick became sick themselves within hours. Even their best protective suits and medical equipment couldn't stop it. "We need help immediately," came another desperate transmission, this one from the Velthani governor of the entire sector. His usually calm voice cracked with emotion. 40% of Harmony Station is gone. New Verdant has maybe days left. Peaceful Haven. We lost contact with 3 cities yesterday. Dr. Velthor had spent 30 years treating diseases across the galaxy. He had seen plagues, viral outbreaks, and biological disasters, but nothing like this. This pathogen killed faster than they could study it, spread quicker than they could contain it, and seemed to evolve around every treatment they tried. Without hesitation, he activated the Emergency Medical Response Protocol. Within minutes, messages went out to every medical organization in known space. The Altarians with their advanced biolabs, the Crystalline Collective with their healing technology, the hive minds with their shared biological knowledge. This would be the largest medical rescue operation in galactic history. 12 different species would send their best doctors, their most advanced equipment, and their fastest ships. Dr. Velter just hoped they wouldn't be too late. Time was running out for 3 entire worlds, and everyone knew that once a plague like this spread beyond a single sector, it could kill billions across the galaxy. The medical fleet that assembled in the Kepler sector was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Hundreds of ships from 12 different species created a massive formation in space, their various technologies, creating a light show that could be seen from the surface of the plague worlds. The Altarian biosynthesis vessels were the largest ships in the fleet. Inside their gleaming hulls, massive laboratories hummed with the sound of advanced medical equipment. These ships could analyze any disease and create treatments in hours instead of weeks. Their bioscanners were so sensitive they could detect a single virus particle from orbit. Next to them floated the ships of the Crystalline Collective. These vessels looked more like floating diamonds than spacecraft, glowing with an inner light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Their quantum healing matrices could repair damaged tissue at the molecular level. Some said their technology was so advanced, it bordered on magic. The hive-mind medical drones moved through space like schools of metallic fish. Thousands of small craft worked together with perfect coordination, sharing information instantly across their collective consciousness. What one drone learned, they all knew immediately. Commander Thrix stood on the bridge of the flagship Healer's Promise, watching the final ships take their positions around the 3 dying worlds. His people had conquered diseases that had wiped out entire star systems. Their environmental suits had protected them from the most dangerous pathogens known to science. Standard containment protocols are in place, he announced to the fleet with complete confidence. Medical teams will deploy in shifts. No one stays planetside longer than 6 hours. Full decontamination after every mission. We'll have this resolved within days. The first week went exactly as planned. Medical teams in their protective suits moved efficiently through the plague worlds, treating patients and collecting samples. The various species worked together smoothly, sharing data and coordinating their efforts. But then the unthinkable happened. Dr. Var, one of the most experienced Altarian doctors, developed a fever while still inside her environmental suit. Within hours, she was dead. Then 3 crystalline healers fell sick simultaneously, despite never removing their protective gear. By the end of the second week, the medical fleet was in chaos. Half the doctors and nurses were either dead or dying. The pathogen had somehow gotten through every protection they had. Their environmental suits, their decontamination chambers, their isolation protocols. None of it mattered. Most terrifying of all was how the disease seemed to learn from their countermeasures. Every time they developed a new protection method, the pathogen found a way around it. It was as if something intelligent was adapting the disease to defeat their best efforts. Commander Thrix watched his confident rescue mission turn into a disaster that threatened the entire galaxy. Dr. Velther stared at the medical readouts with growing despair. Ship after ship in her rescue fleet was going dark. The healer's promise had just reported another dozen deaths among its medical staff. The Crystalline Collective's main hospital ship was requesting emergency evacuation for its remaining healthy crew members. The situation on the 3 plague worlds was even worse. Harmony Station had stopped sending updates 2 days ago. New Verdant's population counter showed numbers dropping by the thousands every hour. Peaceful Haven had begun broadcasting automated distress signals because no one was left alive to send manual transmissions. "Ma'am," her aide whispered nervously, "we're receiving requests from our own medical teams to abandon the mission. They're saying this pathogen is too dangerous to fight." Velthor's tentacles curled in frustration. In 30 years of medical service, she had never retreated from a disease. But this was different. This pathogen was killing her doctors faster than they could treat patients. At this rate, the entire galactic medical community would be wiped out within a month. She made a decision that went against everything the Galactic Medical Consortium stood for, opening a secure communication channel. She began typing coordinates that hadn't been used in over a decade. Commander Thrix nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the destination code. "You want to contact the Deathworlders?" he asked in horror, using the common galactic term for humans. "Those violent primitives, they solve everything with explosions and weapons. They'll probably just nuke the planets from orbit and call it a cure." The other species representatives in the command center began talking frantically among themselves. The Crystalline Collective's ambassador actually started glowing brighter with distress. Everyone knew the stories about humans. They came from a death world where everything tried to kill everything else. Their idea of medicine involved cutting people open and poisoning them with chemicals. "Commander Thrix is right," added Dr. Zix from the Hivemind delegation. "Humans are known for their destructive solutions. They once ended a piracy problem by destroying an entire asteroid belt, with people still living on it." Dr. Velthar looked around the room at the frightened faces of the galaxy's best medical professionals. These were beings who had dedicated their lives to healing and saving others. The idea of asking violent Deathworlders for help went against everything they believed in. "Our people are dying," she replied grimly, her finger hovering over the transmission button. "At this point, I'll take any help we can get, even from humans." The response from Earth came back within hours, but it wasn't what anyone expected. The space around the Kepler sector suddenly filled with the massive forms of human warships dropping out of hyperspace. Dr. Veltar watched her display screen in complete shock as ship after ship materialized in perfect military formation. These weren't the sleek, white hospital ships she had expected. These were dark gray vessels bristling with weapons and armor plating. The smallest ships in the human fleet were larger than most alien medical vessels, and the biggest ones were absolutely enormous. At the center of the formation sat the mobile Fortress Inchen's Pride, a massive structure that looked more like a floating city than a spacecraft. Its hull was covered in gun turrets, missile launchers, and sensor arrays that could probably detect a sneeze from 3 star systems away. 47 warships, Commander Thrix counted in disbelief, his voice getting higher with each number. They brought 47 warships to fight a disease. The communication system crackled to life with a transmission from the human fleet. "This is Admiral Kim Jin, of the Terran Navy's 3rd Battle Fleet," came a calm, professional voice that somehow made the aliens even more nervous. "We received your distress call regarding a medical emergency. We're here to assist with your crisis." Dr. Velthar stared at her screen, showing the massive dreadnoughts and their escort ships. Each one of those vessels carried enough firepower to glass an entire planet. The humans had brought enough military force to fight a war, not save lives. "You brought weapons to fight a plague," Commander Thrix protested, his tentacles waving frantically. "These are warships. Where are your doctors? Where are your medical supplies? Where are your hospital ships?" Other alien commanders joined in the protests. The Crystalline Collective's representative was glowing so brightly with distress that everyone had to adjust their screens. The HiveMind drones were buzzing in confused patterns, unable to understand why anyone would send soldiers to treat sick people. Admiral Kim Jin's response came back immediately, and his tone was as calm as if someone had asked him about the weather. "Sometimes the patient needs surgery." The alien medical teams looked at each other in growing horror. This was exactly what they had feared. The humans were going to solve their medical crisis the same way they solved everything else, with overwhelming violence. Some of the smaller alien ships began moving away from the human fleet, worried that the Deathworlders might start shooting at anything that moved. The next few hours would determine whether calling for human help had been the galaxy's salvation or its biggest mistake. Within hours of arriving, the human fleet had completely changed the situation around the 3 plague worlds. Admiral Kim Jin's ships spread out in a perfect defensive formation, creating an impenetrable wall around Harmony Station, New Verdant, and Peaceful Haven. "Attention all vessels," came the Admiral's voice over all communication channels. "By order of the Terran Navy, this sector is now under military quarantine. No ship enters or leaves without proper authorization. Any vessel attempting to break quarantine will be stopped." Dr. Velthar watched in growing alarm as human patrol ships began intercepting every medical vessel trying to reach the plague worlds. Even her own hospital ships were turned away, despite their desperate protests that they had patients who needed immediate treatment. "This is insane," Commander Thrix shouted over the communications. "You're stopping medical aid from reaching dying people." But the humans didn't stop there. Soon, bright flashes of light began appearing on the surfaces of all 3 worlds. The human fleet was conducting orbital bombardments, sending massive kinetic rounds crashing into specific locations on each planet. Through her telescopes, Dr. Velthar watched in horror as human weapons destroyed the main hospital on Harmony Station. On New Verdant, they targeted the largest medical research facility. On Peaceful Haven, they systematically destroyed every major pharmaceutical manufacturing plant. "They're attacking the medical infrastructure," Dr. Zelkith from the Crystalline Collective cried out in despair. "They're destroying everything we've spent decades building." Meanwhile, human landing craft began descending to the planet's surfaces. But instead of bringing medical supplies, they carried soldiers in thick-powered armor that made them look like walking tanks. These Marines moved through the plague-stricken cities with military precision, their weapons ready. What made it worse was how the humans separated families during evacuations. Dr. Velthar watched through satellite feeds as armored Marines forced crying children into one transport while their infected parents were loaded into completely different ships. Brothers and sisters were split up. Husbands and wives were sent to separate quarantine vessels. They're tearing families apart, she whispered to her aide, her tentacles trembling with emotion. The humans are treating this like a war zone, instead of a medical emergency. The bombardments continued throughout the day. Every few hours, another building would disappear in a flash of light and debris. Medical centers, research labs, pharmaceutical plants, all reduced to smoking craters. They're making it worse, Dr. Velther said quietly, watching another hospital vanish from the surface of New Verdant. The humans are destroying everything we've built to fight this disease. Major Park Wu stepped carefully through the rubble of what had once been Harmony Station's largest medical supply depot. His powered armor made soft whirry sounds as its sensors scanned every surface for threats. Behind him, 12 Marines from the 15th Biowarfare Unit moved with the same careful precision, their weapons ready despite the apparent emptiness of the destroyed building. "Sir, this doesn't make sense," Corporal Kim So called out through the squad's communication system. "Why would a medical supply depot need reinforced walls this thick? And look at these blast patterns. Something exploded from the inside out." Park Wu knelt down to examine the twisted metal that had once been part of the building's foundation. His armor's sensors immediately began detecting trace elements that shouldn't exist in a normal medical facility. Chemical signatures that belonged on a battlefield, not in a place meant to heal people. "Sergeant Li Na, bring your scanner over here," he ordered. "I'm reading some unusual energy signatures beneath this debris." Li Na moved quickly to his position, her specialized detection equipment humming as it analyzed the area. Within seconds, her equipment began beeping rapidly. "Major, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with excitement and concern, as Li Na's scanner penetrated deeper into the wreckage. The outline of a hidden structure began appearing on their displays. It was a completely intact laboratory, somehow untouched by the orbital bombardment that had destroyed the building above it. "Found it," Li Na reported, her voice filled with grim satisfaction. "Void Seeker Bioweapons Lab, completely cloaked underneath the medical depot. The concealment technology is incredible. No wonder the alien medical teams never detected it." Park Wu felt his jaw tighten as the full scope of what they had discovered became clear. "Run a full analysis on that pathogen data. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." The results came back within minutes, and they were worse than anyone had imagined. The plague wasn't a natural disease at all. It was a carefully engineered bioweapon designed specifically to spread through medical equipment and target anyone who tried to help the sick. "Sir," Li Na continued, her scanner picking up additional signals. "I'm detecting 17 ships in orbit around this sector. They're completely cloaked, but they're definitely there. They've been watching this whole time." Park Wu's expression darkened as he realized the full horror of the situation. They've been watching their bioweapon work this whole time. The Void Seekers created this plague to kill doctors and medical workers, then sat back to watch entire worlds die. Admiral Kim Jin stood on the bridge of the Inshan's Pride, watching 17 red dots appear on his tactical display. These weren't new contacts. His ships had been tracking these hidden enemies since the moment they arrived in the Kepler sector. "Sir," Captain Yu Min reported from the tactical station, "all ground teams have confirmed their findings. Major Park Wu's unit has transmitted the locations of every hidden Void Seeker installation on the 3 worlds." Kim Jin nodded slowly. Everything was finally falling into place. For days, the alien medical teams had watched in horror as his fleet seemingly attacked random locations on the plague worlds. They thought the humans were making the crisis worse by destroying hospitals and medical facilities, but they were wrong. Every single orbital bombardment had been carefully planned to hit hidden Void Seeker bioweapons laboratories. The aliens couldn't see these installations because of advanced cloaking technology, but human military sensors had detected them within hours of arrival. Commander Li Dong, the Admiral called to his communications officer. Open a channel. To all ships in the fleet. It's time to show our new alien friends what we've really been doing here. The tactical display lit up as human ships across the sector began adjusting their positions. What had looked like a simple blockade was actually a carefully designed trap. Every Void Seeker ship that had been watching their bioweapons spread, death across 3 worlds, was now surrounded. Dr. Velthor, Kim Jin, transmitted to the alien medical flagship. You wanted to know why we brought warships to fight a disease. The answer is simple. This was never really a medical crisis. It was an act of war. He paused, letting that information sink in before continuing. The Void Seekers have been using your compassion against you. They created a bioweapon specifically designed to kill doctors and medical workers, then sat back to watch you all die, trying to help. The alien commanders began protesting immediately, but Kim Jin cut them off. All units, weapons free, he commanded calmly. Time to cure this disease at its source. The space battle that followed was intense but brief. Human railguns fired streams of metal that punched through Void Seeker hulls like paper. Missile volleys lit up the darkness as the hidden enemy ships tried desperately to escape. Within an hour, 17 smoking wrecks drifted silently through space. The Void Seekers who had watched 3 worlds die were now nothing but debris. The real source of the plague had been eliminated, and the healing could finally begin. Captain Yu Min stood in the medical bay of the Ancient's Pride, watching as hundreds of treatment pods were loaded onto transport shuttles. Each pod contained billions of microscopic machines designed for one purpose: to hunt down and destroy the Void Seeker bioweapon at the cellular level. Are you certain about this approach? Dr. Velthor asked nervously as she observed the human medical preparations. Her tentacles curled with anxiety as she watched human medics in full combat armor, preparing what looked more like weapons than medicine. The nanites themselves were unlike anything the alien doctors had ever seen. Instead of the gentle healing technologies used by other species, these microscopic robots were built like tiny warriors. They carried molecular weapons, energy shields, and were programmed to be absolutely ruthless in destroying their targets. Captain, the first batch of patients is ready for treatment, reported Sergeant Park Ji from the medical shuttle bay. We have 300 severely infected individuals from Harmony Station, prepared for nanite deployment. Yu Min nodded and activated the treatment sequence. Across all 3 plague worlds, human medical teams began injecting the military-grade nanites into infected patients. What happened next made the alien observers gasp in horror. Through powerful microscopes, they could see the nanites literally attacking the bioweapon inside patients' bodies. The tiny machines moved like an army, surrounding infected cells and engaging in microscopic warfare. Explosions of light erupted as nanites destroyed pathogen particles, while other nanites rebuilt damaged tissue with mechanical precision. This treatment could kill them. Dr. Velthor protested, watching patients convulse as the battle raged inside their bloodstreams. You're turning their bodies into war zones. This level of cellular trauma should be fatal. Captain Yu Min remained completely calm as she monitored the treatment progress. So we're doing nothing, she replied matter-of-factly. Sometimes medicine is violent. Sometimes you have to burn out the infection to save the patient. The alien medical teams watched in fascination and terror as human medicine proved to be as aggressive as human warfare. The nanites showed no mercy to the bioweapon, hunting down every last particle with mechanical determination. But incredibly, the treatment worked. Within hours, patients who had been dying began sitting up and asking for food. Within days, the plague that had killed millions was completely eradicated from all 3 worlds. The galaxy learned that day that human medicine, like everything else about humans, was built for war. 3 months after the last Void Seeker ship had been destroyed, Dr. Velthor stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, looking out at a sight that still amazed her. The colony that had been dying just weeks ago, was now bustling with life and activity. Children played in parks that had been empty graveyards. Markets sold fresh food from farms that had been barren wastelands. The population counter in the main plaza showed numbers climbing daily as families who had fled during the plague began returning home. But the most remarkable change wasn't just the recovery, it was the presence of human ships patrolling the system. The same warships that had terrified the alien medical teams were now welcomed as protectors by the colonists. Dr. Velther, her aide announced, "The Galactic Medical Consortium has approved your recommendation. They're formally requesting human participation in all future medical crisis responses." She nodded, not surprised by the decision. In the weeks following the plague's end, reports had come in from across the galaxy. The consortium's traditional approach to medical emergencies was being completely reevaluated. Other species were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about why they had never considered that. Medical crises might sometimes have military causes. The human medical techniques were being studied and adapted by alien doctors everywhere. The concept of aggressive nanite treatment, once considered barbaric, was now being refined for use by other species. Several alien medical schools had even requested human instructors to teach combat medicine. Dr. Velther completed her final report on the incident, choosing her words carefully. "Today I learned that Mercy sometimes wears armor and carries weapons. The humans didn't send doctors because they understood what we couldn't. Some diseases can only be cured by destroying the source of the disease itself." She had seen Admiral Kim Jin's own mission report, which was typically brief for a human. Military document, mission accomplished, the patient survived surgery. The contrast between their approaches said everything about the difference between human and alien thinking. The aliens had seen a medical emergency and sent healers. The humans had seen an attack disguised as a medical emergency and sent warriors who happened to understand medicine. Now, as she watched human patrol ships protecting the recovered colonies, Dr. Velther understood why the galaxy had needed to learn this lesson. Sometimes the greatest act of healing wasn't gentle treatment, it was the complete destruction of whatever was causing the harm. The galaxy learned that day why you don't send doctors to fight a war. You send warriors who understand medicine.